Okay, I thought I'd show you some recent acquisitions of mine in the graphic novel arena. Anyway, let's get started. Something I bought recently was the sensational She-Hulk by John Byrne. It's great stuff. It's a lot of fun. It made a mild splash. It actually got onto the New York Times best-selling graphic novel list in fourth place for 1 week, so that's pretty cool for a superhero comic. If you like She-Hulk, it's an absolute must. The art and story are by John Byrne, who is famous for helping shape the character in Fantastic Four, and then he went on to do what is essentially a comedic superhero story where she breaks the fourth wall and talks to the audience. The art's wonderful. It's Byrne at his best, in my opinion, and you just can't go wrong with the She-Hulk. If you like the stuff that Dan Slott was doing later, this is basically the origin of it right here. Anyone interested in She-Hulk at all, if you haven't read the stuff, you need to get it. He only worked on the first 6 issues and then quit the title, and then it came back later on. There's a whole thing involved with that. If you're interested in the storyline, why he abruptly quit, and then why he came back later, I believe you can check out tomorrow's Modern Masters John Byrne. I think he talks about it in that volume. I could be wrong. It could be something else. But anyway, this is kind of an interesting story why he quit. But the art itself is great, and it's very humorous. And she breaks the fourth wall, as they say, and talks to the audience. So, She-Hulk, check it out. Fun stuff. The next selection I have is The Chronicles of King Conan, Volume 2. This is a nice book. It has wonderful art by John Buscema and Ernie Chan, which I love. That's one of the reasons I've picked up a lot of these Chronicles of Conan titles, and then they've expanded into when Conan was the king of Aquilonia and done stories about that time period. Now, Howard didn't write any stories about that time, really. Other writers did, and they used some of that inspiration, but some of their own stuff. But anyway, these titles surround that. They're early '80s stuff. The art's excellent. It's from what you would expect from Buscema and Chan. So, but I'd urge you to pick up earlier volumes in this series and in the Chronicles of Conan, the Marvel reprints. Good stuff. And the Savage Sword reprints. Those are great. So that's that. Another thing I picked up, used, was the Infinity Gauntlet. But I found this used. It's a little beat up, but I got it for $15 at a used bookstore. Regular price is $15. I think the current Infinity Gauntlet title, they're charging like $30, I think, or maybe more. But it's good. It's written by Jim Starlin, the guy who created Thanos and adapted and changed Warlock and revamped Captain Marvel and all that stuff. So good stuff there. And then the art's split between George Perez and Ron Lim. It's really fun. Not necessarily deep, but fun stuff. Incidentally, if you're interested more in Jim Starlin, the current issue of Back Issue magazine, which is a magazine about comics and comic history and stuff like that, has an interview with Jim Starlin, so you might want to check that out. My comic store was having a big sale, 60% off on a few items, and I picked up the Black Cat, Spider-Man versus the Black Cat, and it's just a reprinting of stories from The Amazing Spider-Man and, well, yeah, it's just Amazing Spider-Man. And when Black Cat first showed up and kind of her obsession with Spider-Man and stuff. Written by Roger Stern, among others. Marv Wolfman's in there as well. But it's kind of a fun title. When I was first really got hardcore into comics, I like the Black Cat storyline, but I kind of missed these early issues, so it was kind of nice to go back and pick these up in trade format. So that was good. Another one I got 60% off was Spider-Man versus the Silver Sable. when it came to Spider-Man, I was kind of picking and choosing back in the 80s. Oh, if I liked the characters or whatever, or the storyline seemed interesting, or if it had the Hobgoblin, I was buying all the Hobgoblin issues I could get. Then I was buying it. But if it just didn't fire me up on the first issue, plus I was kind of more into the X-Men, then I might not get some of the stuff. So I miss kind of some of the Silver Sable stuff. There's some nice art in here. Some of the art's done by Ron Friends and among other people, and I enjoy it. It was good. I kind of missed some of the stuff, so that's fun. And then the Sinister Syndicate show up, and that's kind of nice. You know, you can see them on the back cover there. So you know, it's fun when Spider-Man's foes team up. They seem to be more interesting. And speaking of the Hobgoblin, I picked up this volume called The Hobgoblin Lives, which reprints Hobgoblin Lives 1 through 3 and Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man 259 through 261. I'm not really that stoked about the second half of this thing. That's okay. It's interesting. You know, I'm not this inspired by the art. But the first part of it wraps up officially the Hobgoblin storyline. Just an amazing and incredible storyline. It's the identity of the Hobgoblin was concealed for many years. It was a long-running plot in the early 80s. That's part of what got me interested in the Spider-Man title. Who is this person? And finally it was revealed that it was Ned Leeds, who'd already been killed. It was kind of a weird plot twist, but it was kind of interesting. But it was kind of over, and then it was done. But come to find out, the writer, Roger Stern, had actually considered somebody else to be the Hobgoblin, and that he had done a lot of misdirection. And then when a new editor came on and asked him who it was, he told him, oh, it was Ned Leeds, because he didn't trust those folks. And so then the editor went out and immediately killed Ned Leeds. And so then they did some sort of wrap-up and everything like that. But in all the years after that, they never did anything that contradicted all the little plot twists and threads that Roger Stern had left. And so he was able to go back and say, no, Ned Leeds was brainwashed by somebody else, and he wasn't really the Hobgoblin. And so that's that. And there was something when Ned Leeds was revealed to be a Hobgoblin. There was a couple things like, that doesn't really seem right, but okay. So it was nice all these years later to get the result of that, to get the real story, the hidden story. I think not actually having the Hobgoblin around anymore, the original Hobgoblin, was part of the reason I lost interest in Spider-Man. So, and I wasn't reading Spider-Man back in the 1990s. I wasn't reading Spider-Man, so I never knew this title came out until recently, that it was resolved, and it was great. It was great to see it again. Unfortunately, they brought Osborn back, and I think ruined the whole title. I really liked having the Hobgoblin be a legacy kind of villain, but there you go. But this was very satisfying for me, at least for the kid who loved the Hobgoblin. Another acquisition I got is Captain America versus the Red Skull. This is actually pretty cool because it shows not only Captain America battling the Red Skull in various stories over the decades, but it also shows how the character has been interpreted and drawn, illustrated over various years, and what different tastes. So it's kind of cool like that. We start out with a Golden Age story with the kind of the terrorist Red Skull in the United States, who isn't actually the German guy. That was a retcon. But it actually, if you look at the art there, look at that. I mean, it kind of looks almost like a horror comic, you know, like something you'd see at EC. And then it jumps to, you know, stories from the '60s, from Tales of Suspense, and then you jump to the '70s with stories there, and you know, and they're just, you know, the '60s stories are kind of spy stuff, and the '70s, you know, the early '70s stories are kind of some of the racial tension, you know, the Falcon and stuff. And then they don't include a story I think is really important, which I think is from 298, which was the Red Skull's origin. But, you know, it has a lot of different artists I like, and they're actually, strangely enough, they're all stories I haven't read. So I was kind of an 80s guy, and this doesn't really include any of that. It's all, it's a golden age story, some 60s stories, some 70s stories, and some 1990s stories. And the 1990s stories are actually kind of interesting. I wasn't a big fan of 1990s comics, but we kind of get into the background of a kind of a lost story from World War II about why would the communists, because there was a Red Skull in the 50s, and why would the communists name a Red Skull after take on that moniker and use that character in the 1950s, who was a Nazi and their enemy. Now why they're calling a character the Red Skull. So that's kind of interesting about how that comes about. It's a good title. I'd check it out if you're interested in Captain America. It's also interesting to just see how the art and the writing changed through time. And then this was a cool deal here. I went to Barnes & Noble, and they were having a sale, like 75% off. And so I got this book called Kirby, King of Comics, by Mark Evanier, I believe is how you say his name. And there's the back cover. It's pretty cool. And it's just kind of a rough story of, let me take the cover off, kind of a story of his life with art through the years, sketches. It's interesting because you get sketches of his family, you get a lot of stuff in you know, black and white before it's inked. Some of his golden age work. Kirby's interesting for me, in fact, because when I was a kid I didn't really like Kirby's art that much. I was more of a, you know, just a fan of people at the time, you know, 80s guys. I like Sal Buscema and, you know, John Byrne, and so those kind of guys. So Kirby was like somebody, I liked his designs, but I liked his designs drawn by other people. But as I've gotten older and really looked at his art, I know I'm more and more attracted to it. This is a great page. This is a page of art, and there's the line art. It's a war comic. I mean, I'm just attracted to it. It's kind of like when I was a kid, I liked, you know, or a teenager or whatever, I liked Impressionist art. And then I grew up and I got more interested in Expressionist art. And it's kind of like that. It's like Kirby's an Expressionist, you know. And I could read his comics, but I could also just stare at his art and look at how it's constructed. You know, you got your regular, you know, superhero stuff in there. There's Thor. But, you know, they have more obscure and strange stylized stuff. There's something I wanted to show you in here. There's some more of that guy. There's one piece. This one's nice. This is I think that's from Captain Victory. Just look at those cosmic. Just a second. I got stopped there for a second, so I have no idea where I am. So anyway, I was talking about Jack Kirby, but I think Jack Kirby's really great, and I can just look at his art. I can just stare at it, whether it's a comic page or not, and just kind of examine it. One thing that really put things in perspective in me, I'm going to try to find the page here, is just his mastery over the line, the stroke that he did. This page blew me away. It's just a line art, but if you look at their hair, you can't really see it there, but just the stroke, the control of the pencil line just blew me away. And you can't see that kind of subtlety in the old comics because the printing was so terrible. But nowadays we have the ability to look at this stuff, and it's amazing. So even if you're just remotely interested, it's a great way to check it out if you can get a hold of it. That's it. Just some recent things I purchased. Most of it on sale. So take care.